Was your dad, did your dad cry?
Yeah.
It's unusual. Yeah, most men don't hang on to the black for that long. We both know I'm not like Barry, so.
Just glad to make this one.
Your hair.
Just glad to make this one.
Well, the jaw didn't grate you.
It did actually. I got my picture from 4 years ago.
Really? In the beard? You know, my husband was the same way. He bought out his competitor in his business. And now he went from 300 employees to 1,200. And then his beard went from pretty black to, if it grows out, this is all white. And then he went from probably 10% gray to 15% gray. I think it's stress.
Part stress, part
Are we going to do executive session?
You guys ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the time is 7:04. I'd like to call this Board of Trustees Comprehensive Plan meeting April 15th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Edward?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Kraft?
Present. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. It is truly my pleasure to stand before the board tonight at the very close to the finish line for our Township Comprehensive Plan. The first Township Comprehensive Plan that was adopted in 2008 took approximately 5 to 6 years to develop, so we're in under 2 years from the beginning of this project. I remain very excited. Approximately 2 years ago, a little bit before, the board at the time, as well as some of our other leaders, had a discussion about, it's been 15 years since 2008, and just like all good things, times change. And so there was a feeling at that time that the time had come to update the township's plan for the conditions of the last 15 years and continue to look towards the future as the township looks to manage growth and manage all the things that make the township a wonderful place to live. The township, my office specifically, the Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees at the time went through a vetting process of multiple planning consultants, and ultimately the board at the time and the Zoning Commission at the time elected to consult with MKSK Studios Planning Consultants. They ran a process over the course of the last several years, including multiple open houses, public meetings, surveys, a project website, multiple meetings before our Township Zoning Commission, multiple meetings with me and Chief Stanley, and just a very robust public engagement process. They are now before you with a draft. The draft that is before you was recommended with modifications by our Township Zoning Commission, consistent with the best practices for comprehensive planning. And that was presented to you a couple of months ago. You all scheduled a meeting for this evening. Since the Zoning Commission meeting, I've had further engagement with the trustees. We had I know I can say that MKSK Brandon and I had a very productive meeting with Mr. Adler and a dialogue as well. I have reached out to all the board, and we're here to continue to listen and receive the board's feedback. Ultimately, I don't think it's any secret there's going to be more, a little bit more to do like there always is. Ultimately, we're going to be requesting that the board just continue this meeting at least 30 days to allow us time to take under consideration and bring a new draft before you. So I'm skipping to the end there. But the purpose of tonight is to make Kyle Yonko available to answer any questions, get any other feedback you might have, give us any other comments, receive any other community comment that there is at this time, and then ultimately return before you. I should have also mentioned that as part of the process, prior to the Zoning Commission's review, LUC Regional Planning Commission reviewed, and I'm very grateful that Brad stopped by to lend his support to comprehensive planning. The last thing I'll just say, and Kyle can follow on if needed, the last thing I'll just say is a comprehensive plan is a guide. It is a guide for decision making, and it is just that, it is a guide. There's always situations that are different than the plan might anticipate. The other thing is the plan is over 100 pages, and there are many great recommendations, and even longer, including the appendix. And there are many great recommendations there in text for good policies, managing economic development, balancing land uses with quality of life, infrastructure. Many of those things are in text. And one of the things that our Zoning Commission Chairwoman, Mrs. Guerin, pointed out, and she was involved with the last plan as well, was sometimes people skip to that future land use map and they think that that's the end-all be-all of the plan. But in reality, the plan has a lot of recommendations. Simple things such as making sure that there are adequate resources in the zoning department to manage the process so that the board can do their work. Those type of things don't always show up on a map. So I just always like to point that out, is that the map is one layer, but there's dozens of other pages of good comments. Any particular project is going to be consistent with some parts of the plan, not consistent with others, but the idea is that it just gives the board something to think about, the Zoning Commission, LUC, something to think about as they review these cases. And Mr. Yoder, one of your zoning commissioners, said something very profound, which I thought I would share with you, which was the purpose of the plan is just to anchor the conversation, but ultimately the boat sometimes sails in other ways because of the nature of a particular project. So I thought that was a good observation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have for me. Otherwise, I would just ask if our chairman, Mr. Kraft, might give MKSK the opportunity to just make any other comments or correct any misstatements that I might have said in my brief summary of where we're at.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Eric at this time? Okay.
Trustees, Eric, thank you very much, Chief. Really very, very excited, I think, to be with you all this evening. It's been a short, long road, I think, getting here, but intentionally so. I think over this process, we've had a real great privilege and opportunity to speak with hundreds of residents, stakeholders around this community, and try to pull together a document that's not just 100 pages of our words, but rather a reflection of a lot of the priorities, challenges, and opportunities that are present here in your community today, and then looking forward to the future. I think Eric said something great there as we prime this discussion tonight about what a plan is really all about. I think what we're not up to, and when I spoke with each of you individually, try to make this point a little bit, what we're not up to in community planning is a game of predicting the future. I think that's foolish, especially nowadays as changes in uses and growth patterns shift almost monthly. But what we're really trying to do with an object like this and with a process like this is prepare you all for decisions that may be forthcoming. We were excited by the level of interest, I think, in our work as we moved through this process, especially as we got to an object. I think when we have something to react to, there's a lot more discussion, a lot more energy in the discussions that we had. especially working through your body, your zoning commission. I think what they offered in terms of substantive comments and also support for some of the key recommendations that are present in this recommendation within this plan were very critical, I think, for us getting to this stage. Last thing I would say, Eric, I don't have a long formal presentation in this. We've done this many, many times with you all, but I would say if one thing that comes out of this discussion that we had with your community, with you as leaders, Eric, administrators, and the region as a whole, a big word that really emerged, which is pretty consistent, I would say, with where you were all 15, 20 years ago, this idea of balance. I think one of the core attributes, qualities, characters of your community is that you're a lot of things at once, and you want to continue to be. And I think that balance, though, requires proactivity. It requires work. The status quo requires maintenance, I think, in a number of ways. And as we got through these discussions, created an object, as we created a plan, trying to reflect all those hundreds of different perspectives that came to us over the work. So really excited to be here with you, Eric. I think we're happy to answer any general or specific questions about the process, but also just eager, I think, to hear reactions and to continue to evolve this document along with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to go to public comments before we have board discussion?
Do you have anyone signed up for public?
They're right there for you.
Brad,
Good evening. So we did do a recommendation on this. We're not actually required to do a recommendation on a standalone plan.
Brad, pardon my interruption. Just because you're not at all of our trustees meetings, there's some other folks here. Would you just mind introducing yourself, if not for these guys that know you, but maybe somebody that's sitting out in the audience that may not know who you are?
So my name is Brad Bodenmiller. I'm the director at Logan Union Champaign Regional Planning Commission. We're a three-county regional planning commission. We operate as 3 counties because we're a region that was established back when Honda was attracted to the area. When you guys do a zoning amendment, we're required to review that and issue a recommendation on it for all townships. So we work with about 43 townships, and don't quote me on the number of villages, but 4 municipalities, so about 20-some villages. So what I was kind of getting at is we're not required to do a recommendation on a standalone plan. This isn't a zoning amendment, it's a plan. We went ahead and did that because you all had asked us to do that, so we did it. Before we looked at draft 3.0, I think we looked at draft 2.0, and I think we sent 25 comments. You guys tried to do, when I say you guys, I mean the township, your staff, and your consultant, tried to do something with each of those comments. In general, we encourage planning initiatives in the 3-county region. These efforts, these endeavors take effort and dedication, I think you know that. The resulting documents, keep in mind these are always compromises between community members, providing guidance to future decision makers even beyond the 3 of you today, and even 5 years from now. So we were provided multiple opportunities to review your plan, and comments were earnestly addressed, we believe. So we ended up recommending approval with modifications. So we have modifications that we listed in that letter. That was on draft 3.0. I think you're on draft 4.0. We don't go back and relitigate everything, that whenever you have a zoning amendment, I don't go back and double check and make sure that you addressed everything because you don't have to. And, so at a certain point, I kind of have to trust, that you consider what we say. I don't, even if Eric was an employee of ours through the township, I don't think that I could replace Eric, and I don't think we're going to find somebody to replace Eric. Is my guess. He's a pretty particular personality, and so I think it's a good personality for the record. So my point is that even if I had an employee sitting at the township office, it wouldn't be the same, right? So I'm just encouraging you to kind of move your plan along the process, not encouraging you to ignore any additional feedback, but you kind of have to work through it and get to an end result.
I take it that Brad likes it.
I like it with modifications. Right?
There we go.
I do want to say on the record, we did everything possible. We had a meeting with MKSK, Brad and his team, and me down at MKSK's offices. And then to my recollection, to the maximum extent feasible, LUC's comments were incorporated, or, frankly, Brad just missed something that was addressed somewhere else, and that can happen when you're dealing with a complicated document. What Brad was saying at the beginning was that when this was on draft 2.0, we, meaning the project team, including myself and MKSK, reached out to Brad informally before the zoning commission passed their motion requesting that they do it.
Sure.
We had Brad look at a previous draft, and we did everything we could to incorporate as much of that as we could. So really, Brad has had 2 bites of the apple, which is helpful to us. It's helpful to us. The more eyes that were on it, better that it's landed. So just wanted to add that context. And I did not pay him to say that about me.
Thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for including us. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Barry, anything for Brad?
Not for Brad, but I have a few my own comments
Okay.
when we get time.
Thanks, Brad. All right.
I think we have a comment here from,
I'm sorry, I didn't sign up. I meant to, but.
it's okay.
Step on up.
Okay.
Name and address for the record,
Jeanette Harrington, Mitchell DeWitt Road, Tennessee. A couple things. I was not able to go online to look at the graph here. Is the employment area down by, industrial, Warner, Mitchell DeWitt, is that still all in the employment area, or did you guys take some of that out of the employment area? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. So the question was, did we take you, based on requests that were heard, that you and your neighbors were taken out of the area indicated as employment? My recollection is that was included in the zoning commission.
It was taken out. So part of the area where you go around, I guess it would be Mitchell's property, all that farmland, is that out of the employment area? I thought I saw a draft where it was, but then I saw one where it was
Yeah, great question.
put in there.
Great question. It was addressed in the draft 4.0, but there was some slight discrepancies in the mapping. That was addressed as a modification at the zoning commission meeting. So what's been served up, the version that's been served up to the board of trustees, which is 4.0 with modifications, that's what's before the board for consideration, shows the area that I believe you're referring to as residential. And that's indicated on this map right here.
May I see this?
Sure.
Just to make sure.
This is what I'm showing them, board, what I'm showing Jeanette is the future land use map, which is page 50 and 51, the attachment as in modified by the zoning commission.
Oh, no, what I saw was like, this was all like out. What's this green? What is all that?
That's the buffering.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So no, this is not what I saw. I thought I saw a draft, which this was open, it didn't, the employment area only came to probably like right here. And they left all of this out, including Mitchell's property. That's changed?
I guess, I'd be happy to meet with you and go over the different drafts. It's hard to answer these questions, one, in a meeting, and two, I don't know what you've looked at. You're asking me questions to say, has what I've looked at previously changed? I can only tell you what the 4 drafts say. So I'd be happy to make time to go over that with you.
Well, I see it right there. So my question would be to Kyle, balance. You said the word balance up here, that we need balance in this township. So if that draft, what Eric has in front of him is all employment area, could you explain to me that balance? How that
Hey,
balance is out?
Mr. Chairman, with respect, can we have the
Your
comments
address
directed
the
towards the
board.
board,
Yeah.
please? Yeah. And I'm taking notes.
Am I not allowed to ask him to?
It's not a audience type discussion. The board's conducting a meeting of Board of Trustees and let us know what your comments are.
Okay, my comment is, he made the comment that there's balance needed in the township for the zoning, for things, in order for things to work. And I'd like to know what that balance is in the area that Eric and I were just talking about.
Do you mean Mitchell, DeWitt, and South? Is that what you're talking about? The area, Mitchell, DeWitt, and South?
I think she's talking
No,
about
not
Mitchell DeWitt and east, this corner here where it turns, that curve.
That would be west?
It would be
No, no.
west. It would be west. I mean, it's east of Mitchell DeWitt,
East of
but
Mitchell
west of
DeWitt.
Industrial Parkway.
East of Mitchell, DeWitt, west of Industrial Parkway.
Yeah. I just thought I had saw something that took that out.
So if I may, so the property in question you're referring to, and my name's Julie Don, I'm attorney for Brochus Johnson and Griggs. I was not at the zoning commission level, but I have some background. Are you referring to this, this property here or a different property? And take the color aside, just
I'm not referring to the entirety of that blue area.
but this general area.
Yeah.
So,
the general area.
so the materials that the board has in front of it tonight, those were the materials that the zoning commission received. The zoning commission, so you're aware, the zoning commission has a few different options in terms of what action they can take. And the zoning commission made a recommendation of approval with a series of modifications. One of those modifications being that this blue area that you'll find on 50-ish, anyways, this blue area would be modified so that some of it is identified as blue and some.
Which is shown in the sketch there.
Correct.
You see my annotation there, Julie?
Oh,
That's
right
the
here.
area in question.
Okay, great, okay,
Yeah.
I see. And this area that is kind of hatched would be shown as residential.
On the future land.
So it's, just want you to be aware of why the board does not have those updated materials, because the recommendation to the zoning commission that's in front of the board is a recommendation of approval with modifications. And again, I was not at the zoning commission, but I believe where you all are, is the modification in question would include what you just requested.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not seeing that modification on the list of modifications, attachment A that the zoning commission provided to us. So that's why I'm questioning if that was actually modified or
Attachment A,
not. Right.
item number 1,
Hatch quarter color.
colors to be modified, protected rural corridor. So it's then number 2, page 51, map should reflect map on page 54. That's the modifications, number 2 on the
Does
attachment.
54 show that as residential?
Correct, there were some inconsistencies in the mapping.
I don't have 54 here in front of me. Okay, as long as that was showing them on 54. Okay.
Okay, so I'm not sure what those modifications are, but I would just ask the board that they would consider how that balance works with residential and the things that can go in there, mainly the data centers. They're a nightmare, and my understanding is in the employment area, the data centers can be put in there. And with all the residential development coming in that area, the big one off of Career 42 and all that, that the board just considers that as they, look at this comp plan. And then I just have,
Jeanette, may I ask your opinion about that particularly? So when we talk about balance, we're talking about residential, but then we're talking about commercial development or industrial. And I know that you've had a negative experience with the data centers backing up to your property, and we're trying to address that, as you know.
oh, I'm aware, yes.
But if we have only certain areas for commercial development and data centers are not what you and the neighbors in the immediate area find to be appealing, what is an alternative? What type of uses do you find to be more in line with the word balance?
Well, commercial developments come in many different phases. They don't have to be mega buildings with tax abatements attached to them.
Sure.
balance would be, for me in that area, would be more of your, say, more like, I guess, trying to think of an example of what it would be. Offices, are needed more so. There, and some warehousing, but understand there's different types of warehousing. And when these people, the reason I'm so concerned about this is because when these people come before the boards and they give their presentation or they come before the BCA, those board members don't always know what is all attached to that business coming in.
Certainly.
I don't know what's all attached to it.
And it's
So-
hard when people are volunteer BZA members and they don't have a background,
It
which
is.
is 99.99.
But as we can see with both boards that, and I don't want to get on that soap opera, everybody's aware of what's happening in here. I just wanted to know what Kyle's idea of balance between a resident and a commercial development is.
Yes.
Because these big buildings and everything, I would think that they would go up against freeway, but I don't see that happening here in Jerome Township.
I want to know what balance means to you with commercial.
Well, I guess you would have to take into consideration how close the residents are, and that would determine what type of commercial development would go in. Obviously, if it's a trucking company where they have semis coming in and out 24/7, would you want that in your backyard? No, you wouldn't want it there.
So
I'm
does
saying
balance,
things like that.
does
That
balance
is
for
not balance to
you,
me.
then do you have any objections to, so we're talking about buffering and noise and light pollution and,
Well, that all goes in
Yeah.
with the zoning, yes.
sure.
But the light pollution is an issue when you're up against a residential neighborhood, absolutely. But do you understand?
I
To
do.
me, balance is not having a trucking company with a row of houses, right next to it.
Which I don't think we do.
But I'm just saying, that's why I wanted to know what Kyle's definition of balance is.
Well, lucky for us, Kyle didn't determine what balance meant. It was through the steering committee and a lot of community input. So we're just now trying to shake it out. What does this mean to all of us? Because he didn't get to decide. He's just here to help facilitate all of the feedback into a document that we all decide is good enough, and no one's ever going to agree on everything. But if you had specifics about that particular area, I'd be interested in your comments.
Well, okay, well, head down Emerald Parkway. Look at Emerald Parkway. There's balance there. I look at that as balance. There's a 4-lane highway with a medium in there. You've got high-rise commercial development, large buildings on one side. And then on the other side, with all the buffering that's done in between the two, you've got single-family homes. You have...
Are you okay with the height of those buildings over there?
Yeah,
Well,
we've
they're up
gotten a lot
against
of
the
feedback
freeway.
about
Yeah.
the height.
They're up against the freeway, so to me, that's where they belong, up against the freeway if you're gonna put them in. Would I be okay with them over by Ballantrae, off of Avery Road? No, I wouldn't be okay. I think you have to look at the topography of where these things are going and say, does it really fit?
Sure.
And I don't really see that happening a lot here in the township, especially where I live, anyway. So, and also, just real quick, I just had a concern about the density, the high density of units that the township wants to use. So, that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
comments. Seem- Like to open up the discussion between the board?
Yeah, do you guys have any comments you want before I go into my
You can go ahead.
page? You want me to dive right in? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank MKSK and their staff for taking a detailed look at our township and sorting through literally thousands of comments and a wide variety of opinions to arrive at a consensus recommendation in developing this fourth draft of the comp plan. It has taken a lot longer than expected and been more costly, but in the end, the results should be something we can all agree will be important for moving the township forward in the coming years. I'm reminded of the quote that says, good things take time, great things take a little longer. So we're taking a little longer, I think. But I've read all the
We've taken a little longer, or we're going to take a little longer? Which way is it?
We're gonna take a little
We're going
longer.
to take a little longer, probably. We're on the right track. I've read the recommendations from the zoning commission and listened to all their audios and their meetings and agree with all that they recommended for modifications. I also spent considerable time actually doing my due diligence and giving a thorough reading of draft 4.0 and came up with several additional modifications that I discussed and provided to MKSK, which they shared with both of you in a 12-page attachment B sent to you for your review on March 28th. To help simplify things for our discussion this evening, there were about 31 items that were in red font that included items such as typographical errors, wrong page numbers, miscalculations, missing text, and minor formatting that were discussed with MKSK, and they agreed that these items would be corrected. In their email, they also provided a table with 12 items that needed further discussion to arrive at a consensus by the board. These included 3 general categories: residential density, open space, and focus areas. If the board will allow me to continue, I have the following comments to offer for discussion on these 3 areas. With regards to residential density, draft 4.0 basically doubled all the densities for low, medium, and high density residential from the previous comp plan without providing much explanation as to why these increased densities are needed. I thought that the overwhelming comments from residents did not support increasing residential development and did not indicate a need for increased densities. Any discussion regarding the cost of community support services was limited. It is estimated that to support community services, for every dollar collected in property taxes from residential development, it costs $1.20 for support services. Whereas for every dollar collected from commercial development, it only costs the township about 50 cents in support services. This underlines to me the importance of having balanced growth that slightly favors commercial development to offset the cost of residential growth. We have an estimated population of around 11,000. We've added, according to the comp plan, we've added 2,888 new jobs in the township between 2002 and 2019. We've also added an estimated 2,000 new residential units, adding 6,190 new residents between 2010 and 2023. And I'm estimating there's about another 1,000, probably closer to 2,000 more residential units that have been approved and not yet built in the township. We would appear to have a residential population growing at a faster rate than workforce needs for filling jobs within our township. It appears that we have plenty of residential units either recently built or being built to adequately house any workforce openings in our township. If anything, we should be encouraging more business development to help meet with the expected increases in costs of supporting community services for all the residential growth. We don't need to encourage more residential development, especially higher density residential development. Instead of increasing densities, I'm suggesting only a very slight modification from the previous densities in the previous comp plan. I would suggest that we need to draw our conservation lines to reflect the boundaries of the Big Darby Creek watershed. And that should be pretty well defined on our future land use map. I understand how MSK combined low density and the previous medium density into one category, calling them all low density, conservation, residential, with a maximum of up to 2 units per acre whenever utilities are available. So that simplifies that a little bit. I'm okay with that. Draft 4.0 then recommends up to 4 units per acre for medium density conservation residential development. I am suggesting a maximum of 3 units per acre, and that higher density is limited to areas not in the Big Darby watershed, the Big Darby Creek watershed, which is basically only in the areas east of Route 33. Since making those previous recommendations to MKSK, I learned that the area east of Route 33 and southeast of 42 in the Eversole Run area is currently limited to up to a maximum of 2 units per acre as part of the consent decree with Nationwide's Jerome Village. So this needs to remain at that density as they control the utilities of that area and have indicated no desire to increase densities in that area beyond what the consent decree allowed. This would limit the maximum of up to 3 units per acre in the area east of 33 and northwest of 42. Draft 4.0 also recommends high-density conservation residential development being from 6 to 10 units per acre. I feel very strongly that this high-density residential development should remain at a maximum of up to 6 units per acre, making this category then 4 to 6 units per acre. The only 3 areas of the township that exceed this density currently were done as planned developments. Higher densities might still be an option as exceptions to maximum density in the comp plan as proposed in a future planned development. So I think, and MK also made the statement that the recommendations found within this section do not supersede any regulations within the township zoning resolution. However, we all know that they will be the basis for making zoning text amendments in the near future, and even if a zoning resolution does not change to allow for these higher densities, having them in the comp plan will give developers an even greater justification for submitting higher density developments as part of any planned development rezoning applications. Also, as indicated, the high-density conservation residential areas noted on the future land use map need to be adjusted for the 3 existing areas to show only those existing approved parcels and not include nearby areas to require rezoning of any future development in areas not already approved. I would submit that keeping the densities closer to our existing densities would be more sensitive to the rural character and natural resources of the township. The second area of comments that I have is regards to open space. After further review, I do support increasing the open space to 50%, although I indicated previously that I go along with the 40%, but especially in the Big Darby Creek watershed. I'm willing to compromise and leave the existing open space at 40% in other areas, but given the sensitive nature of that area, I think the 50% is not unreasonable. I would also like to see the open space for high-density residential areas to be similarly increased to those areas to at least 30%, maybe even closer to 50% for conservation purposes in the Big Darby Creek watershed. If you want to further support conservation measures, maybe we should also increase open space for business development in the Big Darby Creek watershed areas from 20% to at least 30%, maybe even 40% in those areas. However, I'm not strongly opposed to keeping the existing open space requirements with 40% for low-density residential, since this appears to be a workable number for developers, and results in Jerome Village indicate that this can be done while maintaining the rural character of the area. The 20% for business development also seems to be working. However, we need more buffering and larger setbacks near roadways and residential parcels. I'm just glad that there was no push to reduce open space requirements, and the only pushes were to increase them. So I appreciate that. And if our true goal is to protect the environment, then I would like to go along with increasing open space, especially in the Big Darby Creek watershed areas. Then the third category is with regards to mixed land use at New California Interchange and US 42 corridor. The main reason there was so much resistance to the suggested focus areas in draft 3.0 was with regard to including higher density residential in those areas. I was glad to see that the zoning commission required the modifications to remove those focus areas, including the old Jerome focus area. Removing them from the comp plan does not eliminate the possibility of future planned developments in those areas, but it does take away the basis for bringing in higher residential without requiring zoning amendments that will allow for a more careful review of any planned developments in those areas. So basically, keeping them out doesn't prevent them from happening in the future. but it will require the zoning commission and the board have a closer opportunity to review them. Even though the focus areas were recommended for removal, there remains a purple area on the future land use map that is just south of the Jerome Market area on Route 42 that they've designated as mixed commercial and retail. The definition of this area is almost identical to the focus area that was removed, and it should also be removed and changed to the pink color, which is for local retail commercial services. The only difference between the purple and pink area definitions is the purple allows for higher density residential to be included, and it clearly states, quote, that residential density should not exceed 6 to 10 dwelling units per gross acreage. I think that was an issue why the focus areas were supposed to they were removed from the map, but this area remained, and it is in all senses a focus area. So I think to avoid any confusion about what is designated for this purple area, it needs to be changed from mixed commercial and retail to just local retail commercial services, thus eliminating any higher residential development unless it is proposed as a planned development, which would be subject to higher review standards for both the Zoning Commission and Board of Trustees as a rezoning application. I did have a couple more points to make that were not included in those three general areas, but I did make the recommendation that due to substantial number of pages in the appendix, that the appendix should be limited just to the engagement summary portion, which is only a few pages, and that the bulkier conditions and trends should be submitted as a PDF that can be referenced as a link in the comp plan to allow anyone wanting to see the background research that went into developing the current revised comp plan. Printing out an extra, I forget what is it, an extra 80 pages of appendix just seemed a waste of paper in my mind. We could link that to something people want, because all that is the background information, and nothing in that appendix was referenced to in the text of the actual plan. One other point, I was also hoping for what we were paying, that all the photos would come from Jerome Township, but understand that many of the items illustrated require some stock photos to complete the document. One other point I wanted to make that was not included in my earlier comments was that we should add some language to limit nuisance, noise, fumes, dust, and environmental hazards, especially due to some of the recent concerns about data centers. One suggestion is that data centers should be considered as a conditional use with permits allowing for public review by the BZA process. I know Eric has suggested some language that could be inserted at this point to allow for performance standards to be developed at a later date that might help.
If I can interject, Barry, it would even go further. I think what you're saying, we shouldn't be too specific in the comprehensive plan. What you're saying is that, which is the purpose of zoning generally, separating compatible land uses. So we can definitely say that without having to list every land use that's going to be possibly incompatible. Your idea as far as a possible text amendment to the Commerce District is a separate conversation, but as I said when we met last week, that's not something I'm personally opposed to. That's something we just got to have the whole board come on board with that. That's more of a zoning thing. My point is, I think we can craft something that has more of a general, separate land uses that are incompatible, because if we just say data centers and so on, then what happens is the next use comes in and they're like, well, you didn't say. It's like, no, it's all land uses that are incompatible. So we could certainly address some of that in the plan and then in zoning.
Thank you. In conclusion, I'd just like to say with regards to next steps, it's my recommendation to obviously continue this discussion into the next board meeting to allow for any additional public input and response from you guys also. And then since there's been a number of modifications suggested, I'd also like to see a draft 5.0 developed as soon as possible, but hopefully no later than our second meeting in May, which is the 20th of May. And if possible, I'd like to be able to have a copy of that available the week before to allow time for the board and the public to review. Again, it might take longer than that, but that's just my suggestion at this point. Overall, I'm pleased with where we are at with this revision and feel that you've done a great job at providing a very easily followed document with graphics, illustrations, maps, and photos that support the text and will provide reference to be useful for many years to help us grow better as we continue to grow bigger. Thanks for allowing my extended comments.
Thanks, Barry.
What do you say, Wesley? No more residential uses in the township? We'll
Well,
have all commercial and business
you-
uses?
you
Like,
know-
you may be talking our language down here, Barry.
I appreciate where you're coming from here. I will say, in order for me to consider, I hear what you're saying, and I'm open to your points and open to making changes according to what you think is best pertaining to residential. But I do think that if we're going to scale back there and the whole goal is balance, I would like to see for every takeaway you have for residential, I need a give on commercial. So I think we're pretty restrictive when it comes to commercial. When we were doing the overlay by the highway, I mean, even having height as to what Jeanette was talking about, that became
It's up against the highway.
yeah, it's
you
up
know?
against the highway, and it became a contentious discussion. In my opinion, it was most appropriate for the building heights to be higher over there. And, you know, people were asking, I believe you were asking for 50-foot buffers. I need some give on commercial. I'm very happy to consider all of your points, but if you could put together maybe a document giving some gives on commercial so that we can be more business friendly, I would be very open to considering your asks with residential.
I think the comp plan has a major give to commercial. They lumped everything and called it employment district, or employment, not district, but the employment. That included everything from what we used to call office, research, medical, to larger development.
But we could
and
do
everything
better
else.
because we're up against competing with Dublin and even Marysville. And currently, right now, we see we're going to lose business to both until we've been very hard on tax abatements in Jerome Township. We don't give them. We fought back on the edict. We have been very restrictive when it comes to abatements. So if we're going to be restrictive to abatements, then we need to be more proactive with getting things done and being a better partner to these private entities when it comes to business. And I think that we do it in the comprehensive plan. And I think that there's room for that. And given your background, Barry, you're the one that more than anyone in this room, aside from Eric, would be able to target that and identify it and find some gives.
The things you're speaking of are more in the zoning resolution as opposed to the comprehensive
Sure.
plan. This is a general guide. We're not going to get specific into building heights
Well,
and things like
I
that in the
understand that.
comprehensive plan.
But
I'm encouraging more business.
But there are things that we can
Yes.
find in the comprehensive plan where we can
Well,
make,
The plan could say we encourage higher buildings close to the highways.
right?
Um,
There could be a lot of things. So for every ask that you have for residential to scale back, I would ask for a give on commercial.
Well, I would ask that you maybe make some suggestions of what you,
I
Admit
certainly
it.
would have that, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
Well, your suggestion was on, you know, that's a very, everything you just said is very valid, everything Barry said is very valid. I definitely think I can help with that for both. Both points are, I think Barry's point about some of that being zoning, that's true. Some of that are sections in the zone, in the comprehensive plan that I can highlight. You know, as I said at the very beginning, and I know you've.
But our history here, you know that many times when projects come through, even though it's a guide, our residents say, but it doesn't match the comprehensive plan, right?
You're
So
correct.
we have to be cognizant of that.
I hear you. What I would just, going back to what I said at the beginning, which is, and I know that you have looked at the plan in detail because you've talked to me about it, but no person can go through that document and memorize everything.
Sure.
What I will do is I'll work with Barry, and we can put together, in working with Barry and Kyle, a kind of list of what I'm going to call pro-commercial development, things that are already in the plan, and we'll make sure that that's documented as a separate, even list. And then the board can consider that as, is that sufficient or do they want to go further? But what I'll do is I'll make a bullet point version of that so that people don't have to hunt and peck, because some of it's in the economic development section, some of it's in the land use section.
Well,
so
sure,
forth.
and what I'm getting at is if we're going to say, all right, we're taking it from 10 units to 4 to 6, that's restrictive. We're scaling back, we're gonna be more restrictive. So what can you find in commercial that is a give.
It's being more restrictive than what they've recommended, but it's the same as what we currently
I
have.
understand, I understand.
We're not taking away anything.
I understand, but in the spirit of being more balanced, what can we do on the commercial end to make it less difficult?
I have a couple ideas, some which are there, some which are just putting things back. There's a lot, the good news with all this is there's a lot of things coming into alignment. You know, Barry had a comment about the density for residential. We got a comment about density for residential from one of the big developers that I think was relevant. Barry had a comment, you had a comment about commercial. We had another gentleman talking about commercial rather than mixed use in an area that we plan for residential. So let me put together, I hear where you're at.
And then keep in mind, we have this rail being planned coming through, you know.
Yeah.
How are we going to be friendly and proactive with that coming down the pike as well, you know?
Mrs. Davis and other members of the board, everything that Barry and I met with this, and I think, Barry, I'll tell you exactly I'll tell the board exactly what I told Barry, which is, Barry, I agree with more than 95% of what you're saying as being achievable. So what he's saying is achievable. What you're saying, Wesley, is achievable. Some of it's been done. We need to probably better document that.
Right.
Some of it we can even move the ball further in a very small way that's not going to, I can guarantee you, is not going to upset anybody at this point. I don't want to cut off the discussion, only to say, with what we've been tasked with tonight, between M. Kansky and myself, we're going to need at least 30 days to
Sure.
do this. I don't want things to take any longer than they have to. The old saying is, how long is a piece of string? As long as it needs to be. But with respect to everybody, there's just enough to do here. There's just no way we can be back in 2 weeks. And I know the board has a special, but it's just not, that's not
I
achievable.
agree,
So,
I agree.
but definitely hear what you're saying, and I've already got my wheels are turning in what we can do.
Joe, do you have any comments?
I would like to say, when we're talking about densities and conservation, to me it seems like some of the areas that would be well suited for like higher densities would help conserve other land and open space. When we're talking about lowering the densities, to me it's like, you know, are we going to have a 5 acre lot requirement in a house and everybody has a yard barn with a horse? You know, that's going to eat up all the land. There's going to be less land for business development later in that. And then if we were going to have multifamily with 4 to 6 units per acre versus 10, I think 12's getting a little, I think you got to go higher to get 12 and have it look like it fits here in the areas closest to the highways where you're talking about the mixed use, the 42 Industrial Parkway, south of 42 area with mixed use. Which wouldn't be, all high density residential, but it said high density could be in there. I kind of think that close to the highway exits and that's where you would want to have the higher density residential and the mixed uses. But when we talk about density and conservation, to me, the lower densities, less conservation. You got people mowing 3 and 4 acres and it's just out there and they take all the natural plants or whatever on it. It seems like it kind of works against itself. Also, I'm okay continuing this meeting. I think May 20th would be like, a little bit more than a month before our other regular scheduled meeting. But I want to make sure that we're headed towards the end of this. I don't want to have Wesleyan bring me 8 pages of front and back, single-sided of things you'd like to go over. I'd like for you to discuss this with Eric and Kyle ahead of time. And but I don't want to, the final document, I don't want to just get it thrown in my lap the day of the meeting and have to say, okay, are we going to vote on this? Are we going to continue this again? But that's all I have to say. Is there any more discussion this meeting?
I have a question. Is it Barry? Can I ask a question?
Step on up the podium, name and address.
Deanne Phillips, 10186 Highland Court.
Thank you.
Barry?
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned the list of residents' comments. Is that somewhere online that everybody can read it, or?
Mrs. Phillips, I can provide you a copy of that. Let
It's
me
not
get,
online?
what's that?
It's not online?
If it is is it on the project website, Yanko? I can't remember. Yeah, I have a PDF of it that I can send you. Let
How
me
many
get-
public meetings have there been? And
I had a list at one point.
Okay.
I mean, Mrs. Phillips, I
Be
can provide
helpful
that to you.
at our next meeting to bring that.
Did you have a comment?
Is it possible to have it online?
I got to look at the project website. Short answer is yes, but I'll get back to them.
It was about another 80 pages worth.
Barry made a valid point there. What's too much information to one person is not enough information to another person. Our office and the consultant want to be transparent, but I can also tell you there's folks out there who, if you give them too much information, that just causes confusion. I'll get with Ms. Phillips. We'll certainly solve that. We'll look at the website. If, as the plan is adopted, there's going to have to be some changes to our website anyway, so we will work together to ensure that. And what was the additional question, Joe? I'm sorry, there was one other question from that. We could certainly.
At the next meeting.
Oh, at our next meeting, could you
Yes.
provide me with the dates and the meetings? Maybe we could.
Yes, I will.
Sure.
I will update my log of our public engagement
Yes.
that was done, and we'll provide that to the commission or to the board.
Not
as a
necessarily in side meetings, but
No.
when we have this.
The announced public engagement workshops, community/steering committee meetings, and the zoning commission hearings, the LUC meeting, and you all.
Okay.
That's part of the document already. It just needs to be updated on that.
Yeah.
Those pages.
We'll ensure that that's done.
Okay. Right. Any further discussion amongst the board?
You're suggesting wait another month then for the next public hearing? To
I think
continue
it
this-
was recommended at the very beginning of this meeting that we not,
Make a
Vote.
decision.
I mean,
Right.
are you ready to vote now?
No.
Okay,
no.
I didn't think so. I just
I
want to
didn't
make
know if we
sure
wanted to
where you're at
continue-
there.
Did we want to continue?
Continue,
this
yeah.
Discussion
We're
to
not
the next
going
meeting?
to adjourn the meeting, we're going to continue it
On
to
the
May
20th.
20th, as both
The
of
next
you.
meeting's May 7th. Do we want to just skip that and then wait till the
Yes.
20th? Is that what you're saying?
The ask was about a month.
You're going to have two, Mr. Chairman and other members of the board, I apologize for interrupting. You're already going to have two zoning hearings that have to happen by law on the 7th, or else
Okay.
Julie's going to get out of her chair and slap my hands around. Okay, so with respect to everybody, my office wants to move. Kyle and Yanko, they're raring to go. They're plugging me all the time. They want to get it done, but the facts are that we already have a zoning hearing. I know Chief Stanley's got business, so with respect to everybody, the 20th, that will allow us the time also to offer, if any of the board members want to meet individually again, to go over that, ensure that concerns, so that way what comes before you is something that is as close to satisfactory to everybody as we're going to get. We're never going to get it. I agree with what you said, Mrs. Davis. No, not everyone will be happy 100% of the time, but we want to come before you as close as possible and know that we did our jobs as your team.
June 3rd? Is that our next meeting after the 20th?
May 20th is our next meeting after the 7th.
Well, I went to make it May 20th and you said we had two.
20th is fine. It was the 7th of
Okay.
May. That's too soon. May 20th would
So I
be
said
fine if that's
the
acceptable.
20th.
That's fine.
Continue to the 20th.
Okay. I'd like to move that we continue this public meeting regarding the comprehensive plan to 7 p.m. May 20th, just before our regular scheduled board meeting.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes. Meeting continued.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a quick break, Gary? You ready? Yeah.
Just give me a minute.
Thanks, Kyle.
I'll call you.
She's got a drainage problem. So.
Some of these things, I think this is where my concern is, will it be? And it's nice to have them kids do it, but to me, it's always to make them come along. Good.
That's good.
Do you guys talk about drainage issues here?
You signed up for public comment, so there's.
I was coming off to talk to her. Yeah. I come out to talk to you, but then they were talking about the plan, and I didn't want to.
I don't know how this works.
Oh, it's okay. So.
Where are you on Heavy Points?
At the corner, like, we're getting our house painted in a couple days. But, on the corner of Rock and Highway. So Frontier Cable just came out and they did some work. They have 2 things planted in the middle of my drainage ditch. And it has caused all kinds of problems. And I'm just now figuring out what's going on.
What did Frontier put in? Like a plant? They did a plant?
They have
thing,
a
or-
pedestal in the middle of my drainage ditch. And as long as we've lived there, we've had all kinds of problems. But I saw them on my property almost 2 weeks ago now. So I started firing all kinds of questions at them, asking them what plans they have, what they're doing, because I have all kinds of problems with all of these contractors on my property. In fact, I've got Jerome Village landscapers on my property. They drive their lawnmowers through the drainage ditch and all kinds of stuff. It's a disaster, and spray chemicals on my property. But anyway, so I just wonder if there's any oversight of these guys because. Because I called all kinds of offices to try to figure out, like, they wouldn't answer any of my questions.
They just like, we have this easement here? Or
Yeah, they have the easement, and they ended up putting, they have a handhold box and a pedestal that's in the middle of my drainage ditch. The pedestal's I don't know.
Like, is it out there by the road and it's like a V like this and they put it right here?
Yeah, I'm on the corner, so the water has to come down Highland Croy and then turn the corner.
Are you on the southeast or southwest corner?
I don't know my directions.
So here, if you're,
I'm catty corner from
if we're going down Brock from
you know
here,
the Jerome like barn.
We think southeast draw.
I'm catty corner from that. The Jerome Village like building.
the Red Barn.
The Red Barn. I'm catty corner on if you say that's kind of on that corner where the Jerome Village like house. I don't know what that.
Are you in Jerome Village or are you on Brock?
I'm on Brock and Highland Croy, the corner. The very corner.
So
And our house
if
is
this
getting
is
painted.
the barn here, if this is the barn here, and here are all those trees,
All those trees. I'm
and
over
here's the
there. Yeah.
and here's the nationwide brick house old one. Are you here or here?
This is Andrea. This is me.
So you're here.
And this the house needs painted. It's getting painted.
And your name's
Deanna.
Deanna Phillips.
Yeah. So we have flooding in our
Have you
house.
sent an email with like all your issues?
I've been on the phone with the county engineers a whole lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot.
But you feel like it's coming from nationwide, the problems? Like,
Usually when there's drainage problem, we ask them to contact the engineer's office. She's in the right path.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
right.
But it sounds like Frontier's causing a problem, making it worse. There was a problem there already, it's making it worse.
So I ended up getting soil and water conservation guys come over. They do drainage ditches in Jerome Village, and they looked and they said, absolutely, you are right. This pedestal is in the middle of the drainage ditch and it needs to be moved. And they said, because I asked the guy from Frontier, and he said, your problem was with the county engineers because they put the roundabout in, and then they put the drainage path right on top of this drainage or this pedestal. And I talked to Joe Eads, and he said there's no way the county engineer would do that, which is what ChatGPT told me.
What's happening with your property? Is it just flooding in your backyard or your house, or what's going
Well,
on?
yeah, we've put a lot of money into the swimming pool. It keeps wiping out the liner because the flooding pulls the water up. We've had our septic tank get flooded and fried like probably 5 times since we've lived here. Our sump pump has had to be replaced twice. The power goes out and we've got flooding. The water comes in the wall. We just had our porch hydraulically jacked up because it's just washing, all the flooding is like washing the water away from the foundation. So that's fixed temporarily. If we can get the water like drainage path fixed. So like the guys from county engineer, the operations group,
Yeah.
they're gonna work on the drainage path, but I just got an email back from him. They originally, when they came out and they looked at it, Joe Eads and those guys had just been there, they said, yeah, you gotta get rid of that. So Casey, I talked to Casey, said, yeah, we're gonna move this pedestal because it causes turbulence and it slows down the water and you get all these like eddies and stuff. And I mean, you can see like last year during the drought, you could look at everybody's drainage paths and they're all like brown and ours is lush. It looks like a rainforest, you know, because it's just holding water there. But he said we're gonna move this pedestal and we'll reroute it so that it's not going through where the handhold is, the underground access box that Frontier just recently put in. So Frontier owns that pedestal because they acquired.
Who was going to move it Frontier?
They acquired Verizon. I don't know who Casey was suggesting that was
Okay,
going to, but I think Casey was saying that they were going to
They
move
were-
it. Like the guy from Frontier told me that absolutely you don't move those pedestals because it's copper, but Casey said absolutely they'll move it. Joe Eads and those guys said absolutely they'll move it. But I don't think now Justin, he's saying that they're gonna probably just grade it, which is I think what they did several years ago, and it didn't
That's
work.
from the engineer, Justin from the county engineer's
Yeah,
office.
which he's great.
Yeah.
But I just need to get back with him. My concern, I think I'm gonna work with him to try to get him to go ahead and move that pedestal and reroute it around that, and just not try to grade it and work with what it is, because I think that's what they originally did, and that's why we've had all of these problems.
Usually I recommend talk to the engineer's office, like when people come with
Yeah, I'm here
drainage
to bother you
issues,
guys because I wonder
because
about
they're
oversight of these
experts.
guys. Oversight of these guys that are coming in and install this stuff because
We don't have
Yeah,
oversight.
Communications is like its own
there's
thing, is my
there's
understanding.
nobody that actually has oversight of them.
Like on
Nobody's a county engineer that has to do with the drainage.
I talked to probably, I don't know how many, like 10, 12 different offices.
Potentially
They kept-
nationwide, but I'm not even sure. Do they?
Well, I think that she talked to a few nationwide people and they were encouraged, they were decent. Justin and nationwide people have been
Nationwide?
most.
Really?
Is that what you said? You
Well,
talked to them?
EMI, the landscaper guys, are contracted by.
Yeah, those are the
NRI.
guys that run through my drainage dish with their lawnmowers.
Do you know what? And it's hard too, unless you were to, if you were to detail some of your complaints and send it to Eric, we would be able to tell better if
I'm sorry about
there's-
that.
It's okay. We would be able to better tell if there's anything we can do on our end.
Okay.
Because we're a township, Ohio Revised Code gives us limited power. But if you give us your complaints, then we can, cycle through and see.
Okay, so give them to Eric? Okay, I'll do
And then
that.
that way we can see, we can
I
go,
just tried to head off the
aha,
public
there's
petitions so we
something
couldn't
that
help
we
us. We're gonna say you
can,
got 3
or
minutes. and she's
if
gonna
it's
get
something
there.
where we know Nationwide has oversight.
Are you with Nationwide?
I'm a trustee, I'm a board of, I'm with the township,
Okay.
elected with these guys. So the township has limited power, but we have a good relationship with Nationwide, so if they're causing you a problem, it's not like we can't go to them and say, hey, listen,
Actually, they're pretty good because, well, I mean, I reached out to them several times about spraying the chemicals.
yeah,
And this last time they finally did it because those guys ended up like mowing over a bunch of bushes that I had just put in.
Yeah.
And,
that's terrible.
but they were good about that. It's just that they keep hiring new, they have a bunch of like, I don't know, these guys,
Come on, guys.
Well, if they're
cheap
contracted,
labor
like you said,
that-
was
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing.
They're contracted out. Well, give
Okay.
your information, that way we can
Now you don't have to
filter
wait
through
for
it.
the public comment, you can just,
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Thanks for saying something.
The time is 8:11. I'd like to call this Jerome Township Board of Trustees regular scheduled meeting, April 15th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Kraft?
Present. We could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any modifications or adjustments to the agenda?
I spoke with you earlier about an additional
Yep.
announcement to add on to the announcements.
I got some more information on that to share, so yep, got it. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'm very sorry, but the zoning commission acted on 2 zoning amendments last night, and as a matter of statutory law, we're going to have to ask you to set a public hearing, so if you'd be willing to make item D under new business, set hearings for zoning amendments. I apologize, but there's no other way to do it following the statutory procedure.
thank you.
And just making executive session sooner than later, please.
Okay. The sheriff was here about
Yeah,
the
after,
overtime.
I mean, I guess that's fine, right?
Okay. So, I move that we add a D to new business to set 2 zoning hearings. And I move that we set the agenda with that modification.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. Robert?
We have your warrants per your pending warrant reports. They are warrants 45,516 through 45,557 and 95,048 through 95,055.
Move that we approve those warrants.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. Right, public participation, we don't have anyone signed up. Public safety officer,
So I had, sitting back on patrol, but I have a few things here. I think the last time I was here, we had talked about potentially working with the prosecutor's office to develop a additional contract for traffic enforcement. So this is a contract for you guys to potentially review and so whenever you guys review that, if there's additional changes or whatever, Sam Hobbs from the prosecutors, the one that drafted it, she was good with the contents of it.
Sheriff, I'm really glad they're considering this because, Chief Stanley keeps telling me he wants to get back in the car and pull some people over because of some of the things folks are doing.
You know what? We do
He's gonna
great-
fill in.
Sheriff's gonna put you to work.
They have a great ride-along program for our senior citizens.
There you
We're gonna, a ride along. Chief Stanley, are you gonna do ride along?
You know, I'm glad to see that you guys.
That was a good one. Oh, that is awesome. Good one.
I just have,
Can't be 2 sheriffs in town though, can?
Shots fired.
I just have one question while we've got legal sitting there. Is there any concern that Mill Creek Township is part of our PSO and they're not mentioned in here at all?
Mill Creek is not part of it. This is your guys' funds for traffic enforcement strictly in Jerome. So that's the reason that, if you look at number 1, it says, this contract is in addition to the previously executed PSO contract. So this is strictly only traffic enforcement for your township.
And
It's
we
not
don't want to include Mill Creek, or we don't have the need,
Mill Creek is not,
interested.
had not brought anything forward for any kind of funding for the overtime for the traffic enforcement. So we concentrated just on your township because that's where the funds would be, from my understanding.
Well, this is probably the first time you've seen this, Julie? Okay, so you can't really have her make comment on it. So, we've had them
What
review.
what I would say, again, I'm just saying this for the first time, but what I would say, Barry, to your question is, and what I'm hearing you say, sir, is, and these are extra services above and beyond the, what you currently have, which involves, Mill Creek.
Sure. Okay,
So if Mill Creek wants to be involved, then they can join and share in the costs as well. That's what
And we're certain, Administrator Stanley, that Mill Creek is not interested in joining.
That's correct. Originally, Keith Conroy on their behalf was saying that they didn't have a purpose for it then. His only suggestion was is to do a separate contract that would be fillable.
sure,
And in
okay.
his mind, maybe that's something that can come later, Sheriff, but this is fine, I think, for all intents and purposes. We'll review it.
You guys look at it, you let me know.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Did the board have anything else for the sheriff while he's here?
I'm gonna read this.
Got a better outfit for a picture, but we already got one last time, so.
So I do have one other thing, if you don't mind, is when I was here last meeting, I believe Trustee Adler, you had asked about the number of times our PSOs were out in your township, and I said I would work on that. So we have worked on it. So from what I can tell for the first 3 months, there's at least 58 different calls that the deputy was outside Drum or Mill Creek Township. About half of those could be concerns that we're going to look into more in depth. Some of them are 911 follow-ups. We've had there's 5 that we classify as area checks, and that's just on the Dover side, just on Watkins Road, just the substation there. So it butts up right to Mill Creek, so them traveling back and forth and then calling it in. That still shows they're out of the township, but it was on that borderline. So that's one of the areas. There was an attempt to suicide, which there was cutting involved, so the PSO had to render first aid. So from what I can see, there's at least 58, and we need to investigate more. Out of those 58, I don't know if any of those calls that are attributed to those unit numbers, which are the PSOs, if they worked overtime. So some of those calls will be them working overtime in the other areas. I just couldn't differentiate from that report prior to this meeting whether it's regular duties or overtime duties. So
Okay.
I will still get a better answer for you, but at least there's a start and you kind of know where we're heading.
I appreciate that. And could you put that in perspective to total number of calls within that period roughly? Is it like 1% of your total calls or less than that?
I don't know, because I didn't bring those, because I
Okay.
provided those at the last meeting. There's actual calls for service numbers, so I don't have that with me to compare.
Okay.
Maybe
But
next
I
time.
but I can do that for you.
No rush.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Thank
follow-up.
Thank you.
I did have one other question that
Okay.
I was going to ask. Hoping for some follow-up. Was there anything done about the traffic jam down on Warner Road going into Amazon? Is that-
We checked, and I haven't seen any more complaints than what we had. So as it stands right now,
They're handling it then?
it's handling at this point.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
you.
Anything at all?
No, thank you.
Thanks for your service and be
Thank
safe
you.
out there.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to move that we enter into executive session pursuant to ORC 121-22G8 to consider confidential information related to the specific business strategy or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance and negotiation with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
Second.
It's okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes. All right, the time is 10:05. I move that we adjourn executive session.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. Administrator's report.
I have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Old business, we've got Pioneer Crossing Reserve F deed and easement.
Mr. Chairman and other members of the board, we are still in, we meaning Mr. Stanley and myself are still in negotiations with Pulte and between our legal counsel and prosecutor's office. So with your permission, I'll move on to item 11B because that is ready.
Go right ahead.
Very briefly, there is a stone, AKA sign, in the park at New California, commonly known as Firehouse Park, that says New California Hills. That sign was installed by the township, by the New California Hills Homeowners Association, that came to our attention that the easement that the township negotiated with the HOA back in 2008 was never recorded, and after research, no one, the township, legal counsel for the HOA has a full copy of that. So Ms. Huber and I approached the HOA council, who have crafted, and they worked together to craft this new easement. In short, what the easement says is that the homeowners association is responsible for continuing to maintain the stone, AKA sign, and if the sign is in disrepair, the township can notify them. If the HOA fails to maintain it in the long run, the township can have it removed at the HOA's cost. If the board were to act tonight, there's a motion, written motion in your packet, which Ms. Huber wrote for you. If the board were to act tonight, Ms. Cox, attorney for the HOA, will be the one to record that at the county so it doesn't get lost. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to move that we approve and adopt a maintenance agreement, the New California Hills Association, and authorize and direct the fiscal officer and township administrator to take all actions necessary to execute the agreement and carry it into effect.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
They don't
Joe
need,
signs here?
I believe Mr. Stanley can sign if they've authorized him. It has to be notarized.
Okay.
So no other action at this time.
Okay, under new business, I've got a discussion of Dublin Soccer League request.
Yes, as you're aware, the Dublin Soccer League president had reached out over the course of the last few days or weeks, making us aware and informing us that the city of Dublin had made a decision recently, their council, to no longer support that league the way they were doing so. And so it was going to put a lot of financial strain on what this league is claiming to be roughly 250, up to 250 students that go to either Abraham Depp School here or Eversole Run that would participate in their soccer league. She was asking for the township board to consider to help offset and pay the registration for these athletes as they entered their league. And then you have in your packets there the email. And if you turn to the last page, basically, this was a portion of her email that says that the Dublin Soccer League charges $130, which includes a jersey and socks for 15 weeks of soccer for its U6 to U12 program. The initial non-resident fee will more than double these fees for the fall of 25, spring of 26, and more than triple the fees in fall of 26 and 27 when the $150 per season fee begins. Our organization is committed to providing outdoor soccer for all kids. And at the time she was saying maybe start a conversation with the city of Dublin to cover these fees or some negotiated portion of them. I went back and forth with her asking some more questions. For example, how would we prove if there was a mechanism to prove of those 250 students, who of them, how many actually reside in the township. She replied back later to that there was a way to track it through the mapping mechanism. So that kind of answered that. And then my last question I think I posed to her was, are you having any other luck with any of the other communities that would also be impacted by this decision? And all I think I heard back was that she had, on the first page there at the bottom of page 1, she says, I have reached out to the city of Columbus, and then she says that she believes that some of Concord Township families will be affected, but she hasn't contacted them yet. So
Dublin's not helping?
No,
The city of Dublin?
that's correct. That,
But they
that was
haven't
in her
passed,
original
is what it sounded
email,
like.
is that they had voted to make a change. On that last page,
They took away the
the
schools.
city's previous policy of extending subsidized pricing to Dublin City Schools residents is no longer sustainable given capacity challenges. And that includes the children living in Jerome Township and attending Dublin City Schools. While we don't have an exact number of children that DSL serves, the Dublin Soccer League, who are living in Jerome, the number of players in our database attending those two schools is 250, or over 250. The registrants will pay an additional $75 per season for the fall of 25, spring of 26, and then those fees increases to $150 per season, the fall of 26, spring of 27, and beyond. So whatever decision you make, if any, tonight, would impact this year, and then that fee goes up. So I think at one point I was asking you folks to consider, are you wanting to just do a 50% so that the families would have skin in the game? I didn't know how you wanted to approach this. It is a kind of a complex, as time goes on, it kind of builds, is the way it looks to me.
So is the school district involved in this at all, financially?
Doesn't look,
No, I don't believe so. So basically, she's asking either we help do a portion or all of it, or work with the city of Dublin, which I didn't quite follow that, because they're the ones who made the decision to stop subsidizing this. So, my only feedback for you is that if you're going to do this, my concern would be, where do you stop it if another league would come in here asking for the similar?
Well, listen,
Golf.
my
What about
children
the
go
other sports?
to Abraham Duff
Right.
and they go to Eversole, and I can appreciate this, but I don't know that using taxpayer dollars for nonprofit organizations is appropriate.
Yeah, I hadn't even
Especially
followed
when,
that, but-
you know what I mean? I don't, when we waive something in the township with our rental fee, that feels a little different. But to what end? Because then we have Jonathan Older, and then we have Fairbanks, and then we have tolls. And although I can understand, because Jerome Township, let me think about this. Jerome Township residents are township residents, not necessarily City of Dublin residents. So I can understand why City of Dublin might not. But those parents pay an awful lot of property tax to the Dublin City Schools. So you would think Dublin would want to support it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't think this is something we could do. I agree with you, Wesley.
I don't feel like using taxpayer dollars for a nonprofit is appropriate for us to. I feel like I'd have to think about it, but it's not that I don't want to. It's just, is it appropriate?
Yeah, I guess the only thing that struck me odd with it is that, not that it's not a legitimate request, it is.
Sure.
And you are talking about, several kids. I don't know that we would end up, I don't know if it ever gets to 250. My guess would be, all she's saying is that 200, I don't know if she said all of those are registered to play soccer. I think she's just saying that 250 students.
No, I think she was.
Well, we don't have an exact number of children
Robert,
that Dublin City, Dublin Soccer League serves who are living. The number of players, okay, the number of players in our database shows it's over 250 between these two schools.
and that's just soccer, so what if we get the baseball nonprofit,
Golf.
the ice skating nonprofit, the hockey nonprofit,
Yeah.
you know?
If we only
But
put
that would also
$100 in, that's
improve our honor
25.
system to alleviate
Where did
that.
they-
2,000.
And anybody
Okay.
know what the city of Dublin budget is? I'm pretty sure it's,
Oh,
They're
It's-
not hurting.
they're saying it's not sustainable.
yeah. I think we all agree we're not going to be able to help this.
I don't
project.
think we can.
Yeah.
I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think the concern is that it's just one league and it's for a certain select number of students and
Okay.
I don't know how
it's hard to
we,
justify spending taxpayer money.
Sure.
Salt contract, Robert?
Yes, so we received notification of the ODOT salt contracts for the 25-26 year. Vince has indicated to me that he would like to order 600 ton. It is a bit more than we ordered last year, but we
He's
ended,
been reading the farmer's almanac? No.
but we ended the year before, we had a pretty large supply to carry over. This year we've used quite a bit, so we don't have a large carryover, so the amount seems reasonable. We don't know the price per ton yet. This is, you're committing to 85% of what you put in as your order that you have to receive or have to pay for. They then put it out to bid, and there's usually about 5 different companies that they award based on regions in the state, and you find out, what your per ton price is at that point in time.
Do you know off the top of your head how much storage we got? I mean, we got it all and it didn't snow. We
How much salt?
take 85% of 600 tons?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you don't have to take full delivery at one time.
Just if it didn't snow all year, we had to take 85%. Okay. So you need a motion that
Yes,
we...
and then something for you to sign.
Okay. So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Sign down at the bottom there.
Okay, question for you. Is the jet amendment for Kia something we were thinking like the next trustee meeting with the two zoning would?
Great question. So I just spoke with Julie earlier today, just a few moments ago. I'm going to hand you a completed copy of that, Joe, but the hearing needs to be, in order to allow us, the hearing must be 30 days from the notices, so the hearing's going to need to be on May the, what did we decide, 20th?
Okay,
Yeah, so is that a Tuesday?
it is a Tuesday.
If you just
Does
give
it
me a
have to be
second.
within 30 days?
No, it must be more than 30 days.
All right, I'd like to move that we set up a public hearing for amendment to the Joint Economic Development District
Second.
for Tuesday, May 20th, 7 PM here at Township Hall.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Second.
okay. Roll call?
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. Okay. Eric?
Mr. Chairman, other members of the board, you should have 2 zoning amendments in front of you with the information completed. In order to meet the statutory requirements, you're going to need to have your hearing on Wednesday, May the 7th, unless you want to have a special meeting. These amendments are a text amendment and a map amendment that I have drafted in conjunction with the zoning commission, so I don't anticipate hours of controversy, if that means anything.
Okay. Chair, I'd like to move that we set up a public hearing for the amendment to the zoning resolution, case number Z25-001 for Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, 7 p.m. here at the Township Hall, and authorize and direct the fiscal officer to give notice of the hearing as required by applicable law.
Second, I've got a question. I've got two of the same things in here. Is it?
Does one say ZT and one say Z?
Yes.
Yep, mine does also. And the reason it's going to be Wednesday is because there's no special election on Tuesday, May 6th.
Voting day.
Yeah, voting, sorry.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. The second, I would like to move that we set a public hearing for the amendment to the zoning resolution, case number ZT25-001, Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. here at the Township Hall, and authorize and direct the fiscal officer to give notice of such hearing as required by applicable law.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Oh, yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes. All right, I've got a couple announcements here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could I interject that I think the township administrator was going to mention something about the website for the Parks and Cemetery?
Yeah, it's in the announcement.
B, is it B? Okay, sure.
You didn't want to explain more?
What the trustee Adler's talking about, Jerome Township's teamed up with Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission to study parks and cemeteries within the township. There's a survey available on our website and Facebook, and we will have some of these by the front door.
Yep.
People want to stop by the township office and pick them up.
Oh, I
You
have
got
one.
one
They
here.
can scan the QR code or use the link.
Okay.
And I
Okay,
just
thank you.
want to make a quick comment in addition to this, that it is a consulting contract we have with MOPSI, and that there's a short period, I think a 12-week period, where they want to try to get this completed. So we want to encourage as many residents as possible to get online as soon as possible to give your opinions and survey, because they're going to be developing a master plan for the parks and cemetery.
I think 23 have already taken it, but we need way more than that. We'd love to have a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Yes. There's a special election on Tuesday, May 6th here at the Township Hall. So the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be on the Wednesday, following Wednesday, May 7th at 7 p.m. at the Township Hall. There'll be a Memorial Day program at Jerome Cemetery, located at 10,760 Jerome Road, Plain City, Ohio, Monday, May 26th, 2025 at 10 a.m. The second annual Jerome Township Community Car Show will be held on Saturday, June 7th, 2025 on Estates Court, just off Estates Parkway. It's a free event. It'll start at 10 a.m. and include food trucks, music, and lots of fun while visitors explore the different vehicles at the show. If you would like to receive notices regarding the Jerome Township Board of Trustee meetings, please email the township at jerometownship@jerometownship.com. The township is always accepting applications for positions at our zoning boards. Please visit Jerome Township website to fill out an application. Wanted to also mention that on Saturday, April 26th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there'll be a drug take-back day. Will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Station 211, Union County Sheriff's Office, the Pleasant Valley Fire Station, Richwood Police Office, and the Walmart in Marysville. Again, there'll be a drug take-back day, April 26th. The time is 10:24. I move that we